So any other questions? Alicia.
Yeah, so I guess it's sort of along the line of Debbie's. I'm sort of milling around with a new idea, and I can't really remember how I did my last one. I guess I just wrote. But would you advise for somebody who really doesn't believe that November would work for me? Do you?
Well.
So would you advise like trying to do this by yourself? Like, you know, if I decide, frankly, I think January would be great. Just because, you know, the time of the year, but even for me, like kids, maybe not this fall, but kids go back to school in September, so that could be like a good one for me.
Yeah, I think it's worth a try. You know, I think a lot of our writers during NaNoWriMo, they, especially the published novelists, they'll do their own NaNoWriMo at other times in the year. Like our published novelists, sometimes once they start publishing, their publishing cycle won't allow them to write during November. I will say though that one benefit of NaNoWriMo, I mean, we say a goal and a deadline is a creative midwife. So it has that basic sort of structure of pushing you towards a big goal. But one of the motivating things is participating in it with a lot of other people. And so a lot of people say that what's galvanizing about it, even if they don't have friends who are writing on it during November, they'll feel that wider community. Like if you get on Twitter, hashtag NaNoWriMo is generally trending in November. So I think taking part in that community can be really motivating, whether you're taking an active, engaged part or just being, you know, on the sidelines and viewing it. So, I mean, I don't know. Can you do both?
Maybe.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, doing it in November, even if you don't get to 50,000 words, it might be a nice way to get introduced to it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just give it a shot.
Yeah.
Costs nothing. It's free. And there's no penalty if you don't get 50,000 words. So.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what the school situation is for me at the moment.
we do have a young writers program, and so kids can participate in that. And I know a lot of families who write novels together, and they're literally the happiest families on the planet. So I recommend writing as a family. How old are your kids?
One just turned 7 and 9.
Okay, so
a little early.
It's a little early, but again, it's all free. So if they want to, you know, sometimes we have had 7-year-olds write novels. I mean, usually they're more like picture books, but.
Yeah. Well, possibly my 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Hi.
Are you ready to write a novel? Do you want to write a novel? Maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Think about.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. Sure.
Sarah, you had the next question.
Thank you. I write short stuff, and I've recently found your journal of the 100-word stories, which is amazing. And the things that I write, I've gotten a lot of feedback about, oh, that's nice, but it's not really a story. What do you find most challenging about the short form?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Especially we get asked that a lot. Can you write a story in 100 words? And meaning like the conventional story that has a beginning, middle, and end. And my answer, of course, is yes, you can. And if you look at most of the stories on our site, most of them have identifiable beginning, middle, and end, and some sort of, even if it's very subtle, character change. So that said, though, I'm a very prose poemy sort of writer, and so if somebody writes a real gorgeous 100-word story that's a little less narrative, I mean, I'll publish it, or I love like a well-written vignette as well. So I'm pretty forgiving on that front. I don't know about other story editors. Remind me of your specific question, though, because I think I'm rambling.
I was just wondering what you find most challenging about the short form.
Most challenging, yeah. So I think what I find most challenging is that since I grew up kind of like most writers being trained to write longer. So when I got my MFA, you would standardly turn in about a 20-page conventional short story, or that was like the conventional length back then, 20 to 25 pages. Short stories, the conventional length keeps shortening, like we really are getting to shorter forms in general. And that, but the MFA program writing these short stories, it was all training ground to write novels. So it was like we were in the minor leagues with short stories, and then we wrote novels. So there was all this like write more, build a narrative longer. And so what I'm saying is that this was all training ground. Like I wired my brain around writing novels. And so sometimes when I write the short stuff, I write them with that kind of exposition or that kind of character background. And with short fiction, you really have to write with hints. You're really doing a lot with what you don't include in the story, and this is what I think is really valuable to write short form, because you need to do this not with novels too. Like what is left out, the reader will fill in. That's part of the great imaginative experience of reading, and especially building suspense in a novel. It's all about judging what to leave out, which is a kind of fascinating and tough exercise. So I'm still struggling with that. Sometimes I write short stuff and I realize, no, you're writing this like you're writing a novel. And you need to like think about what is the really telling hint, the really telling detail, and just being like, that is all I need. And I think it is a matter of getting down to the essence too. Like the great writer Yasunori Kawabata, he wrote this story, and let me think, what is his name of the story? Oh, I can't remember it. Has something to do with snow though. But anyway, he wrote a whole novel, and then at the end of his life in the novel, I think he won the Nobel Prize because of that novel, Snow Country, I think maybe. But anyway, then at the end of his life, he wrote a 12-page version of it. It wasn't a summary of the novel. It was like what he called capturing the essence of it. It was called Glimmerings of Snow Country. And so his whole purpose as a writer was to capture the essence. And that's what I think we do, is like when we're writing really short forms, is really just capturing the essence. So it's I think a lifetime challenge.
Yeah, I think that the short form, like, or learning or practicing your writing in short form, teaches you so much for the novel. Like, you much more evocative novel at the end.
Yeah.
Jen Siebert, you have the next question.
Hi. So I got an email today about Camp NaNoWriMo in July.
All right.
Yeah.
You signed up, right?
Not yet. But what's the difference between Camp NaNoWriMo in July and then in November?
Oh, good. Thank you for asking that. So we do have other months, and I should have mentioned this earlier to the earlier question. So in April and July, we do a version of NaNoWriMo. It's called Camp NaNoWriMo. It's online, and it's basically the same thing as NaNoWriMo, except you don't have to write 50,000 words. You can set any word count goal you want. So you could set a 10,000 word count goal or a 90,000 word count goal. You don't have to write novels. You can write scripts. You can write a collection of short stories. You can write an epic poem. And it's just more casual. So there are fewer people participating, but there's still a lot of people, like about 300,000 people participated in NaNoWriMo in November. And let me think, about 40,000 signed up in April for our camp in April. And so I would expect another 35,000 or 40 to sign up in July as well.
Wow.
So yeah, it has a little less, whatever. It's just more casual event. So, but it's still fun, and it allows you to, kind of set your own goal.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Julie, you have a question?
Oh, okay. I thought you might be mouthing my name. So I'm kind of in Alicia's boat in that I'm trying to create something new, but also I'm trying to polish something toward, submission. So I'm wondering if you have any advice about that juggle of getting back in that creative space, kind of like that NaNoWriMo mode, whether it's July or April, but while still trying to do that polishing mode with a second project at the same time.
Wow. They are two different parts of your brain, aren't they, in a lot of ways. It's interesting to me how involved I can get in when I'm doing revision and how tough it will be to start something new afterwards. Do you really need to do both at once?
When you had a deadline, yes.
Okay, so there's a deadline for your revision project. I mean, can you focus on that and finish it?
It's a deadline for the new thing, actually. So I kind of have a deadline
okay.
for both, but one is more, it came up more immediately. So anyway, yeah, they're deadlines.
I see. Yeah. No, I deal with the same thing. That's why I juggle projects. So, but I don't juggle them concurrently. So I'll at least dedicate whatever needs to be dedicated. So for the new project. So for instance, this last month, I'm working on, let me think, I'll go through the projects. I was working on putting the final touches of revision on a novel that I want to send out to my agent in early July. And I was starting an essay for a collection of an anthology. And I was putting some finishing touches on a book proposal. So these three projects were contending for me, my mind, and they all are different, you know? And so, but it is really tough, but I think I think you need to like set up some like sustained time for each of them, like dedicate a week to the revision project and then dedicate a week to the other project. Or whatever makes sense in terms of the deadline. I don't know. I think it's tough to go back and forth unless you really have a lot of time in the day. Because I suppose I could wake up and do revision for 2 hours and then switch to the other project for 2 hours. But I think even that's tough, depending on the projects. Does that help at all?
Yeah, I think it just, it's a come to terms moment. You have to, the compartmentalizing may be the best choice. Even though it feels like you got to work on all of them, that may make sense to just push one aside, push aside.
That's how I would do it. But yeah, everybody has a different brain for these things. So find what works for you.
I think a different brain is actually a good tip because, like, I have a different brain in the morning than I do in the evening. So I write much better in the morning and I edit much better in the afternoon. So, I would let that influence things as well. Sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think that's a good point. Sometimes I'll wait. I'll like there's certain writing activities or editing things that I'll do in the afternoon or evening when my brain's less creative, less generative.